Hi, my name's Grace Bellucci. I'm 32, and apparently I've been a walking embarrassment to my family since the day I was born. You ever grow up feeling like your whole existence is some kind of mistake no one had the guts to fix? That was me. In a family like mine, where Sunday dinners were more about flexing your quarterly profits than catching up, I was the cracked plate on a perfect porcelain shelf. We grew up in a small, tight-knit Italian-American community in Westwood, New Jersey. My family ran Bellucci's Bakery, a landmark according to local papers, built by my grandfather, expanded by my dad, and supposedly perfected by my sister Bianca. Bianca, 38, was the golden child, the one who made headlines for launching gluten-free cannolis and hosting charity bake-offs at the town fair. She was always Miss Westwood. Blonde, polished, charming. The kind of person who gave perfect hugs at church, then ripped you apart behind closed doors. And me? I was just Grace. The girl who studied law while working night shifts at Frank's Diner. The girl who argued with our parents about fairness and justice instead of EBITDA and Yelp reviews. They called me the family disappointment. Actually, no. They didn't call me anything. They barely talked to me at all. The story really starts the week before my mom's memorial. She died of a heart attack 2 years ago. People said it was sudden. I always thought it was exhaustion. Exhaustion from carrying this family's secrets. I went back home to help organize the memorial scholarship fund Mom had always dreamed of. The Maria Bellucci Fund, meant to help first-gen kids in Westwood afford college. Turns out, Bianca had other plans. When I showed up at the bakery office with the paperwork, Bianca looked me dead in the eye, smirked, and said, "You really thought you'd be involved in this? Please. Mom's fund is being rebranded as the Bellucci Legacy Foundation, managed solely by me, because no one trusts a dropout-turned-public defender with the family name." I'm not kidding. That's exactly what she said, in front of the whole staff. I hadn't felt that humiliated since high school when she convinced half the town I was cutting class to hang out with druggies, when in reality, I was volunteering at the community legal clinic. I left the bakery shaking. Not because of what she said. I'd heard worse. But because I finally realized Bianca wasn't going to stop until she erased every part of Mom that didn't fit her narrative of perfection, including me. That night, I pulled out some old paperwork Mom had kept in her sewing room. Business contracts, property deeds, and the original trust papers for Bellucci's Bakery. And right there, in black and white, was something Bianca clearly hoped I'd never find. The bakery wasn't solely hers. After Mom's death, it was supposed to be split 50-50 between us. But the transfer never happened, because Bianca never filed the final paperwork. For 2 years, she'd been running the whole empire alone, telling the town it was hers by right, and collecting every single dollar of profit. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, but because, for the first time in years, I saw a crack in her armor. I spent the next month quietly gathering every legal document, every financial statement, and every email chain that proved how she'd been operating illegally. And just when I was ready to take it to court, an email from the New Jersey Court Administration landed in my inbox. I'd been promoted, effective immediately, to presiding judge of the Westwood District Civil Court. Guess what case was on my docket the following quarter? Bellucci v. Bellucci, ownership dispute, Bellucci's Bakery, filed by Bianca Bellucci, suing to have me legally removed from any claim to the family business. She didn't know. She had no idea the judge she was begging to throw me out was me. And the hearing was in 3 weeks. I wish I could tell you I walked into that courtroom with my head high and my heart steady. But the truth is, I barely slept for 2 weeks straight. You try preparing to judge a case where your own sister's trying to erase your existence. And it wasn't just about the bakery. It was about Mom. About the life Bianca had been rewriting piece by piece since Mom passed. See, my mom wasn't some perfect homemaker like Bianca loved to pretend. She wasn't a polished society wife. She was the backbone of that bakery, the one who handwrote every recipe card, who donated bread to the food pantry without a press release, who stayed late on Saturdays teaching single moms how to bake so they could sell their own pastries at the church fair. Bianca had spent the last 2 years scrubbing all of that away. She turned Bellucci's from a neighborhood staple into some corporate chain knockoff with branded mugs and influencer partnerships. And she rebranded our family history while she was at it. She told the papers Mom passed the torch to her because I was too busy chasing frivolous social causes. She told our dad that I abandoned the family by leaving the business to play pro bono lawyer for criminals. And worst of all, she told herself she deserved it. But what Bianca didn't know? Mom left me more than just half the bakery. She left me her journals, buried in a shoebox under the floorboards of her bedroom closet, wrapped in an old apron. I found them the night before my final prep for court. Pages and pages of Mom's handwriting, raw and honest, about how she worried Bianca was letting the fame go to her head, about how she hoped one day I'd come back and remind this family what it meant to build something for love, not status. But the entry that broke me was dated 6 months before her death. If something happens to me, I pray Grace finds these words. Bianca will try to erase her. She always has. But Grace, if you're reading this, please fight. Not for the bakery, for what it means to the people who count on it. I sat on that floor and cried so hard I thought my chest would break open. Because in that moment, all the years of feeling invisible, all the slammed doors and cold shoulders finally made sense. Mom knew. She always knew. And she trusted me to protect what mattered. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse not as the scared little sister, but as the judge who was going to make damn sure the truth saw the light of day. And that's when it happened. As I sat reviewing my docket, prepping my opening remarks, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me to answer. Judge Bellucci? The voice said, shaky, hesitant. This is Anthony Russo. I work for Westwood Community Bank. I think you need to see something about your sister's business accounts. Turns out, Bianca wasn't just stealing the bakery from me. She was laundering money through it. Thousands of dollars in donations that never reached the scholarship fund Mom dreamed of. Funds from the Bellucci Legacy Foundation being funneled into shell companies registered in Delaware. One of those shell companies? Named GRH Legal Consulting LLC, fake invoices, fake legal fees, all made to look like I was on her payroll. Bianca hadn't just tried to cut me out of the family business. She was trying to frame me for financial fraud. So if the inheritance dispute didn't ruin me, the IRS would. I put down the phone and stared out my office window at the bakery sign glowing in the morning sun. The same sign Mom had hand-painted when we were kids. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just hurt. I wasn't just angry. I was ready. If Bianca wanted war, she was about to learn what happened when the family disgrace picked up the sword. The hearing was tomorrow, and she still had no idea the judge waiting for her was the sister she tried to destroy. The morning of the hearing felt like walking into my own funeral. Except I wasn't the one who should have been scared. I sat behind the bench, robe zipped, heart pounding, pretending like this was just another civil dispute. But every part of me knew better. This wasn't just about property or profits anymore. It was about my life. Bianca walked in like she was walking the runway at a charity gala. Perfect navy pantsuit, diamond earrings, smug little smile that said, "This is already over." She strutted right past the court staff, the reporters, the gallery packed with half of Westwood's old money crowd, completely unaware that the judge she was about to sweet-talk was the same sister she'd tried to erase. But as she took her seat at the plaintiff's table, her confidence cracked for just a second. She glanced at the judge's nameplate. Judge Grace Bellucci. I saw it hit her. First confusion, then disbelief, then something colder. Fear. But like the performer she was, Bianca recovered fast. She straightened her papers, whispered something to her attorney, and smiled like she had this under control. I didn't smile back. Court is now in session, I said, my voice steady but colder than I felt inside. Let's begin with opening statements. Bianca's lawyer stood, some high-priced suit from Manhattan named Kenneth Fields. He started spinning a story about family loyalty, preserving the Bellucci legacy, how poor Grace Bellucci had abandoned her family duties and was now selfishly trying to steal what her sister had built from the ground up. I sat there, letting him paint me as the villain, letting the lies stack higher and higher because I knew something they didn't. The truth was sitting in a folder on my desk. The financial records Anthony Russo had sent me. Records showing Bianca funneled $300,000 of charity donations into a shell company, then funneled it again into a private investment account. Guess whose name she used as the account holder? Mine. When Fields finally finished his little morality play, I asked the defense to proceed. Bianca stood up herself. Of course she did. She never could resist the spotlight. And she launched into this speech about how she'd carried the family business on her back after our mother died. How I'd been too selfish, too distracted with low-level legal aid work to contribute anything meaningful. And then she said this: "Your Honor, I love my sister, but she has never understood what it means to be responsible for something bigger than herself. That's why this bakery and everything it represents belongs in capable hands." The courtroom fell quiet. All I could hear was my own pulse roaring in my ears. I took a slow breath and leaned forward. "Mrs. Bellucci," I said, deliberately using her married name because I knew how much she hated sounding common. "Are you saying you've managed the bakery finances ethically and in accordance with the law?" She blinked, then smiled sweetly. "Yes, Your Honor. Every decision I've made has been in the best interest of the Bellucci legacy." I nodded slowly, reached for the folder, opened it. "Then how do you explain these wire transfers from the Bellucci Legacy Foundation account to GRH Legal Consulting LLC, an entity registered in your sister's name, containing no actual legal activity, and used to purchase personal luxury goods?" The smile dropped from her face like a mask slipping off. What are you talking about?" she stammered. The gallery erupted in whispers. Her lawyer froze. "I have certified financial statements from Westwood Community Bank," I continued, my voice cutting through the noise, "showing embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft, all traceable to you." I could see it happening in real time. Her empire, crumbling in front of everyone she'd ever tried to impress. But the real dagger came next. From the back of the courtroom, a familiar voice spoke. "Your Honor, if I may, I have evidence to submit on behalf of the prosecution." I turned. It was Dad, standing there holding a flash drive. For the first time in my life, my father had chosen the truth over his perfect daughter. And I swear, for a second, Bianca looked like a ghost. For a split second, I couldn't breathe. There was my father, Harrison Bellucci, legend of Westwood Law, the man who'd spent my whole life pretending I barely existed, standing in the back of my courtroom holding a flash drive like it was the sword in some family war. And for the first time in 32 years, he wasn't holding it for Bianca. I cleared my throat. "Approach the bench." The entire courtroom watched in dead silence as my father walked forward, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor like a metronome ticking down Bianca's fate. He handed the flash drive to the clerk without looking at her. Instead, he looked straight at me. And for the first time ever, I didn't see disappointment in his eyes. I saw regret. "Your Honor," he said quietly, "I can no longer ignore the truth. This drive contains emails, financial spreadsheets, and internal memos I discovered while reviewing the bakery's legal accounts. It confirms your findings. And more." "More?" I asked, my voice steady even though my hands were trembling under the bench. He swallowed hard. "Bianca didn't just commit fraud against the bakery. She used the Bellucci Legacy Foundation to funnel bribe payments to multiple city officials, including the mayor's office." Gasps echoed across the room. Bianca's face turned a color I didn't know human skin could turn. "You're lying," she screamed, bolting to her feet. "You're doing this because she jabbed a finger at me. Poisoned you against me. You've always been weak, Dad. You're letting her ruin us?" But my father didn't flinch. "She didn't poison me," he said, voice calm like a man who's finally stopped running from the truth. Your own actions did. For the first time in her life, Bianca had no script, no performance, just raw panic. Her lawyer tried to object, but I cut him off. Enough. I motioned for the clerk to load the files. Line after line of transactions scrolled across the courtroom monitor. $50,000 to a city zoning commissioner. $20,000 to expedite health code inspections. $75,000 donation to the mayor's re-election fund. And every single payment sourced from a charity fund created in our mother's name. You could hear a pin drop. Or maybe the sound of my mother's heart breaking, somewhere far away. But it wasn't over yet. Your Honor, my father added quietly, there's one more thing. He opened a leather folder and pulled out a signed letter. This is my formal resignation as managing partner of Bellucci and Sons Law Group. Effective immediately, the firm's entire interest in Bellucci's bakery, previously held in trust under my name, will transfer to the rightful beneficiary stated in my wife's last addendum to her will. I froze. What last addendum? Bianca gasped. Dad finally turned to face her, sadness filling his voice. The one your mother wrote 6 days before her heart attack. The one you lost before the probate hearing. I couldn't breathe. He handed the letter to the clerk, and the clerk read aloud. In the event of my passing, all Bellucci family business interests shall transfer equally to my daughters, with managerial control given solely to Grace Bellucci, whose heart aligns with the bakery's true purpose. The room exploded. Reporters shouting questions, Bianca screaming something incoherent. And me? I sat there, feeling like the ground had fallen out from under me. I had spent my whole life begging this family to see me. Turns out Mom already did. She saw me before anyone else. But here's the kicker. Right as I thought the worst was over, my clerk whispered something that made my stomach turn. Judge Bellucci, the IRS has just filed a federal subpoena for you. They think you embezzled from the charity. The room spun. Bianca smiled. Cold, sharp, victorious. You didn't think I'd leave without a backup plan, did you? For one terrifying second, everything froze. The words, federal subpoena, echoed in my head like gunfire. After everything Bianca had done, after I finally had the truth in my hands, she still found a way to drag me down with her. And God help me, I almost believed her. But then something shifted. I looked around that courtroom, the one I'd fought tooth and nail to reach. I saw the clerk, the bailiff, the attorneys, the people who'd seen me work my way up from night shifts at Frank's Diner to this bench. And I remembered. I earned this. I wasn't some puppet in Bianca's sick little show. So I stood. Bailiff, I said, calm but sharp as glass. Seize the plaintiff's personal devices and financial records under emergency court authority, and contact Agent Morales at the IRS office. I'll provide the real documentation. Bianca's smile faltered. You're bluffing, she hissed. But her hands were shaking. See, what she didn't realize was, I already knew about the false accounts she'd opened in my name. 3 nights ago, after Anthony Russo gave me those financial reports, I called in a favor to an old law school friend, now working white-collar crime at the IRS. We traced the shell companies, found the originating IP addresses. All roads led back to Bianca's home office router. And the kicker? She'd been sloppy. Real sloppy. The paper trail showed the GRH Legal Consulting account was opened at 2:14 a.m. from Bianca's personal laptop, while I was logged in arguing a case 100 miles away. I wasn't just innocent. I had an ironclad alibi. Within minutes, 2 federal agents entered the courtroom. Bianca tried to bolt, but the bailiff blocked the door. Bianca Bellucci, you're under investigation for wire fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice, the lead agent announced. Anything you say can and will be used against you. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, Bianca's mask didn't just slip. It shattered. She screamed at my father. She begged the crowd to believe her. She tried to play the victim one last time, but no one bought it. Her lawyer packed up his briefcase and walked out without a word. Dad just stood there, hollow, like a man watching his empire burn. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't cheer. I just sat down, exhausted. Because the thing no one tells you about justice, it doesn't feel like a win. It feels like finally setting down a weight you didn't realize you were carrying. By the end of that day, the court officially transferred sole ownership of Bellucci's bakery and the Legacy Foundation to me, as per my mother's true wishes. But instead of keeping it all, I restructured the business as a community-owned cooperative. Half the profits now fund scholarships for first-generation college kids in Westwood. The other half go to keep the bakery alive, the way Mom wanted. Serving people, not status. Bianca? She's awaiting trial. The media calls it the biggest fall from grace in our town's history. I don't feel sorry for her, but I do feel sorry for the girl she might have been, if someone had taught her that love matters more than legacy. As for me, I'm still figuring out what comes next. But at least now, I get to decide. Sometimes the people closest to you will betray you in ways strangers never could. But if you build your life on truth instead of approval, no one can tear it down. If you've ever been underestimated or betrayed by your own family, tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear how you found your way through it. And if this story meant something to you, stick around. I've got more where this came from. See you next time.